Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today as we are going to discuss Chiron finishing up his journey in Aries and switching mastery into Taurus, which begins for 3 months in 2026. Chiron has been in Aries since 2018. We're going to discuss some of the healing themes that perhaps you have been presented with during Chiron's journey through the first sign of the zodiac. And then starting on June 19th, Chiron enters into Taurus and will be at 0 degrees of Taurus until September 17th, where Chiron will then return into Aries, complete the final 6-month journey through Aries and return to Taurus in April 2027. So essentially this year is showing you how far you have come in healing and understanding more about your true authentic self in Aries, and is preparing for a change of focus as Chiron moves into Taurus. And so I wanted to begin with an archetypal understanding of Chiron. Chiron is the wounded healer who exists between Saturn and Uranus. And Chiron is how we shift into more of our true self. And that first reveals itself through wounding, pain, hurt, harm, a crisis point, an injury, or something that essentially softens us into more of our humanity and into more humility. Chiron is the energy of being able to get to the root cause of a feeling, fear, worry, or doubt, and to then transmute it by accepting it. Chiron is the energy of self-love, self-acceptance, self-compassion, and self-forgiveness. And it's because of these traits that Chiron in your natal chart and by transiting placement reveals how you are becoming wiser and more spiritually evolved at a very personal level. Chiron was a centaur who was half man, half horse being, and he grew up being rejected by his mother. He was abandoned and ostracized and was very different than the other centaurs who were much more wild and impulsive and driven by instinct. Chiron was thoughtful, sensitive, inquisitive, and this set him apart from the typical status quo of his peers. And he didn't realize it at a young age, but this was in fact his mastery and his specialty, as he would then take his strengths, develop them, and become a highly sought after herbalist, medicine man, shaman, astrologer, wisdom keeper, philosopher, master healer, and mentor. Chiron developed many impressive skills because of his commitment to his true energy frequency and his ability to not compromise his authenticity or his true self in any way. He established himself as the medicine man on the mountain that others would travel to, seeking his guidance, seeking his remedies and solutions for whatever ailed them and whatever troubled them. And so even though Chiron had many gifts, he was essentially known for being a specialist, for being able to support people and heal them in ways that traditional methods could not. Chiron is connected to alternative pathways, different approaches, and an authentic nature that is only found by embracing and going into more of your true self and your own innate frequency. It is a highly individual path to be working with your natal Chiron, wherever Chiron is in your chart, as it often reveals where you feel insecure, uncertain, and you have stress, doubt, or worry about this part of yourself and how you show up to express yourself in this area of your life. And this is also why Chiron can be highly sensitive, because you're developing the confidence to be more of yourself, knowing that it is new territory and it will set you apart. Because Chiron exists between the orbits of Saturn and Uranus, Chiron exists between the known, true, and physical world of Saturn and in the pathway to awakening, liberation, and uncertainty of Uranus. It is part of our ascension to be working consciously with Chiron, as it opens you up to even more of what you didn't know you were good at, where you could excel, what hidden talents and hidden gifts were available to you, and how it takes ongoing learning to embrace these parts of yourself. Chiron was a sacred teacher who would guide others through transformation. And that is a key theme here of his journey, especially when you look at it as the energetic movement from Saturn into Uranus potentials, where Uranus potentials will always set you apart and make you different. It's a disruption to the mainstream and to the status quo. And Chiron is your introduction into how you are here to be different and how your own liberation journey will unfold. Now, a central theme connected to Chiron is that his wound was incurable. This is because he had an encounter with a poison arrow from Hercules. This was a toxic wound from Hercules that Chiron could not heal. And even though he was this incredible healer with extraordinary gifts, he could not cure himself. And so this is the foundation of the wounded healer archetype, that the deepest wound will not fully disappear. It remains present with you throughout your life, but then it becomes a heart-opening vortex. It expands you with compassion, wisdom, support, and even a desire to help others who have the same wound or the same experience. So this is where Chiron softens into his own energy and begins to embrace times of pain or suffering as opportunities to surrender. So when we look at Chiron's mythology and how it pertains to astrology, this is where we discover how our sacred wounds lead to an awakening, that there is healing presented through the experience of suffering, of pain. This is where the teacher is initiated through that suffering or through their own personal healing journey. Greater compassion will come forward, and we are being elevated to turn our own personal hardships into medicine for others. How we collectively support one another on our individual journey is a Chiron theme. So understanding this, we then apply Chiron to each astrology sign as he moves through that sign. And he has been in Aries since 2018. So you could look back on your own chart to see where Chiron has been moving through the house or houses in your chart in Aries, bringing up more around your self-identity, new beginnings, and trusting yourself at an instinctual level. Chiron in Aries has also brought to the forefront healing anger, selfishness, impatience, impulsiveness, your inner toddler, as well as developing greater courage to do something new for the first time in your life. So when we look at the span of time of Chiron in Aries that does go into the first quarter of 2027, this is a time to assess how you have been dealing with some of the themes here that I'm going to run through. Dealing with unconscious self-abandonment wounds, where you have given up what you need for the sake of others, for the sake of an experience, or for a situation. Any forms of self-abandonment may have presented itself since 2018. The fear of self-assertion or fear of standing up for yourself could also be something that has come to the forefront. Chiron in Aries would have also revealed where you were doubting how to take action, how to take initiative, or trust your creative instincts, essentially bringing up how you were hesitating or doubting yourself and what you wanted to move forward with. Chiron in Aries also brings up where we feel uncertain or lacking confidence in expressing our true self, including the feelings and emotions that aren't so pretty at first, expressing anger, frustration, expressing your personal needs, declaring who you are, what you you want. Perhaps there have been some big themes for you in your life around where you are learning to stand stronger and more confident in who you came here to be. There's also themes of looking at new relationships with your physical body, new relationships with your physical wounds or any injuries, perhaps even injuries that you had earlier in your life, or any injuries you sustained with Chiron in Aries that slowed you down. There would have been periods of time that required you to rest, to trust the healing that the body needs, to not rush ahead, which is the Aries way. This would have been a slowdown that could have brought up frustration, could have brought up a sense of, why can't I do this like I used to do? Or I used to be so strong. Why am I not strong with this endeavor or this sport? It could have brought you into a new relationship with the physical body, which is an Aries ruled energy, because the physical body is the physical vessel that you need in order to have an individual experience in this physical reality. And so there could have been things arriving as messages from the body, through the body, with the body. Chiron in Aries would also be revealing how much you trust yourself at an instinctual level. Trust yourself to have a fresh start, to pursue a new endeavor, to move into a new beginning point in your life. Those would all be very strong themes here that perhaps brought up stress, worry, and doubt around if you were equipped to do so, if you felt ready to do something new and different for the first time. This could have brought about fears in being more independent or courageous. Maybe there were fears of separation here, where what happens when I move away from this person or these people? What happens when I am all on my own and I have to do something on my own terms in my own way? Chiron in Aries would have revealed what those fears were and what you needed to work through. Chiron also brings in themes of abuse, trauma, crisis points, and unhealed aspects of self that are ready to be validated, loved, and accurately understood. And so the Chiron in Aries is very personal, and it could have brought up some very personal experiences for you that were coming through for you to look at. What is the trauma I need to address here? What are the fears I need to reframe and create a new narrative around? What areas of unconscious abuse or painful experiences are arising for me to see in a new way and to work through with deep reverence for my self-love, self-confidence, and personal abilities? So there would have been a very internal requirement with Chiron in Aries. We are still in these energies, but since Chiron is moving to 28 and 29 degrees of Aries in May and June 2026, we are starting to see things from a new vantage point. This is where Chiron is higher up on the mountain, looking back at the pathway he has climbed and understanding more of who he has become along the way because of his ongoing dedication to his own healing. And so you might have some deep revelations here around what you've been moving through that has actually deeply shifted your personal frequency. That's part of Aries. Now, it also goes to the root chakra. It can bring in your desire to be a new version of yourself, to understand more of your true nature and your authentic spirit. Chiron in Aries would be reprogramming the root chakra and asking us to soften down anything that is inflamed or overactive in that root chakra expression. Chiron in Aries has been working with the root chakra to support stabilizing primal needs, instinctual abilities, that gut level reaction you feel. Even just trusting the gut would have been something that Chiron would have brought to your attention. There could also have been some root chakra themes around assertiveness, personal power, competition, attacks, initiation, and leading. There could also have been revelations around where you've been suppressing any anger or personal needs, especially related to your early self-identity. There could be nervous system exhaustion from always being in survival mode. There could be a fear of conflict, a fear of standing up for oneself, a lot of self-doubt. So these would just be some themes to determine if they resonate with you or if they've been something you've been moving through in your own world. But what occurs is that now that Chiron is at the end of Aries, again, at the top of the mountain and seeing things in a new way, part of what Chiron has been leading you through is a new way to view yourself, your true self and your authentic nature, to really understand more of who you are, even if there's parts of yourself you didn't fully accept or see before. Chiron wants you to welcome in these abilities, talents, needs, emotions that you have, anything that has been rejected or suppressed, anything that perhaps you weren't sure you even knew about yourself. Chiron says, bring it in and listen to these parts of yourself that hold deep wisdom. And so the healing here is that Chiron at the end of Aries is allowing you to deeply embody new levels of courage, where you might find that you're ready to do something for the first time in your life and you feel strong and certain about it. You've cleared out any of those layers of doubt, worry, stress. There's something strengthening here that Chiron in Aries wants us to fully own. And as we do so, we also have greater trust in our instincts and our intuition. We feel stronger energetic boundaries. We also can feel that we're healthier in our self-leadership. Like you're ready to do the thing. You're ready to start the project. You're ready to move forward on something that maybe you've been uncertain about and working through and sort of waiting for the energy to shift. Chances are it is shifting now or into June, and there's going to be more grounded confidence that moves you forward based on your personal power. And so this is where Chiron in Aries has also been healing that warrior spirit that maybe felt exhausted or even too aggressive, because Chiron shows what has been overcompensating, what has been too expansive or too big, what has taken over the sense of self and has become too personally tied to the unhealthy ego. Chiron softens that. Chiron asks us to retract it, stabilize it, make it clearer, and embody it from a healthy place. There could have been the release of stored anger, for example, and the release is meant to be done safely. There could be more desire here to listen to the body as a sacred vessel that is safe in the physical world, gifting you with the ability to learn both themes of strength and softness, because again, that Chiron wants you to soften into yourself, to not be too hard on yourself and have greater self-compassion, but to know that that's not a weakness. That's another form of self-love and of course a beautiful strength. Chiron in Aries is also bringing to our attention new ways of learning about ourselves, new things that you're good at, ways of embracing what you're realizing about who you are for the first time in your life, perhaps, and seeing that as a beautiful strength and blessing, something to love, accept, and honor, and to feel good about who you are. So these are very core level energies that Chiron in Aries has been reprogramming and shifting our frequency around. Now, because of that, there can also be changes in your physical body, in your aura, and this is going to sound weird, but in your head and in your face, because that's also what Aries rules. Aries is associated with head, face, skull, eyes at a physical level, and then also adrenaline, hormones, blood flow, energy level, and your life force. And so it could have felt at times that Chiron was slowing all that down, was requiring you to maybe do less in order to heal something or to recalibrate your physical body in some capacity. Now, as Chiron moves on and enters into Taurus, there is a change of mastery and a change of focus. Chiron will hang out at 0 degrees of Taurus for 3 months in 2026. So only getting to that 0 degree point of new beginnings and pure potentials in the new sign of Taurus, which is fixed earth, and giving us a heads up into what we will now be moving towards in order to heal it and change the frequency. So this also means that as Chiron moves into a new sign, again, the middle of June until the middle of September 2026, we're going to have new vulnerabilities, sensitivities, and personal energies to work with 0 degrees of Taurus. So let's discuss some of those themes here, just for a heads up as to what we will individually and collectively be experiencing with Chiron and Taurus. Now, when Chiron moves into a new sign, there is a sense of what is the fear to address? What is the wound to be aware of? What parts of our unconscious self are driving the show in Taurus that Chiron is going to bring into our personal awareness so that we can heal it and find new medicine? That's always an important theme with Chiron, is that the change is necessary so that you can find alternative pathways, alternative remedies, and new medicine. And this is where the discomfort happens as well, especially when we're discussing the fixed earth energy of Taurus, which wants stability, which wants certainty, and needs a foundation to build upon. Chiron moving into Taurus is going to bring up our fears around lack, loss, personal security and stability, and what we need in order to live a good, meaningful life. So it's going to be bringing to our attention what we possess and own, what we invest in. This will certainly bring up your personal resources and financial concerns potentially. There could also be a sense here of looking at what do I need to change in my life so that I'm not bogged down by too much. We're going to be reassessing ownership, what you own, not only physically, but I think of it as creatively, digitally, where we have, for example, creative rights and digital rights. There's also going to be more around assessing what you have accumulated and what takes up space in your physical world. One thing that we have to bring into this conversation of Chiron and Taurus is that it's going to be more severe because Chiron in Taurus is going to be squaring Pluto in Aquarius in 2027. And that's going to bring about severe changes in systems, processes, collective energy fields. This is where that Pluto squaring Chiron could bring up more extremes and worst case scenarios. However, the bigger picture here is for us to look at what has to evolve because ultimately it doesn't serve us. It only keeps us in a state of worry, doubt, stress, loss, and insecurity. We'll be talking more about Chiron and Taurus squaring Pluto in Aquarius, as that will be happening again next year. But for our preview here in 2026, this is the time to get real with yourself. What are you saving or investing in, and is it really essential? What do you have too much of that you're willing to sell, barter? What are you willing to release and let go of, understanding that it sets you free and it's less to maintain or it's less that you have to take care of? We're also going to be going into how we feel about our creative spirits and if we really feel that that is alive within us or if it has been overly minimized, rejected, or doubted. So we're going to have some opportunities here to fully embrace more of what you love to create, where you find beauty in the physical world, what matters to you in your daily environment that you want to further develop. You want more growth here. And this Chiron in Taurus could show you what has been lacking. Maybe you haven't had the time or energy for something that actually makes you feel good and you love it. It's bringing alive more of our artistic nature and the parts of us that aren't always readily welcomed into our everyday modern lives. So where do you need to be doing more painting or music or woodwork? Or just something carefree and open, because there's a lot of people who will say, oh, I'm not artistic, oh, I'm not creative, but every human has innate creative abilities and potentials. And so how are you embracing that? And you might discover with Chiron and Taurus more of your creative gifts, more of what you enjoy just because it's fun, just because it's pleasurable, and that's it. You don't have to sell it. You don't have to make money on it. It could just be your own personal thing that stabilizes your energy, brings you good support and energetic influence, and allows you to feel more alive on your own terms. So that is one way that Chiron and Taurus will be supporting us, because part of what Chiron wants us to do is reclaim our sovereignty, reclaim the parts of ourselves that we have given away or rejected, to welcome in more of what we're capable of and to accept it as part of our abilities and our gifts. And so again, there is no competition here, which is important, because there could be a sense of, oh, well, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I need more skills, more training in order to do this or to take it seriously. But Chiron and Taurus is going to be reminding you that if you are in the state of enjoyment with something, if you're truly in a place of loving what you're doing, that in and of itself is very valuable. And part of what Chiron and Taurus is going to bring our attention to is how to develop inner security in a rapidly changing world. How to nurture and grow that internally rather than relying on external validation or possessions to validate us. Because this Chiron is reminding us that true value and true worth is not measured by what you have done or what you've collected. It's not based on your status, appearance, productivity, or financial success alone. Rather, this is where we have a calm strength that moves through us and guides us through these big, powerful, evolving energies. And we continue to embody resilience, strength, and internal stability that allows us to anchor in that frequency into the physical world. Now, Chiron in Taurus is also going to bring up what we put our energy into outside of ourselves. So this includes what we buy, consumerism, materialism. It will be interesting to see how it moves through the economy as well as to luxury brands, because Chiron in Taurus is going to be making an impact on anything that is false around luxury, prosperity, wealth, and accumulation. We will be learning how to become more solid in all areas of our life by first seeing what is not working, what is not a fit for the new frequencies of our time, and also where we've been stuck in something because we thought it defined us. We thought it's really important to drive this car or to have this type of jewelry. We're going to be assessing our physical possessions in a whole new way and getting to the heart of, what does this truly mean to me? What does it represent? And so there could be things that, again, you're clearing out and removing because it doesn't align with the phase of life that you're in. There's also going to be value restructuring happening here, where people are going to want less and be maybe required to have less in order to move through this shift in our Taurus everyday needs. Of course, this looks different for everyone, but you would want to look at your natal chart where you have the beginning degrees of Taurus. So 0 degrees of Taurus is the important degree point here in 2026. Again, from June 19th until about September 17th is when Chiron puts his first impression into Taurus, and there might be some big world changes in the economics, in supplies, in resources, in the economy, especially in retail. Retail is going to be hit by Chiron in Taurus. And that has been the case since 2020, when we had the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, another Earth sign that affected business models, companies, industries, and the overarching structures of various business models. Now, Chiron in Taurus is going to show us, okay, how much does this cost? Is it worth it? Do I want it? And part of what we're going to be reconfiguring is how much we need to own, how much we need to buy. And as people cut back, that will, of course, continue to affect retail stores, consumerism, hospitality, tourism, travel, restaurants, entertainment, and essentially all the ways that people spend both their disposable income and their monthly income for survival needs. After Chiron spends these 3 months in Taurus at 0 degrees, Chiron then re-enters Aries and will stay in Aries until April 14th, 2027, providing another 6 months to finish up the Aries themes, messages, energies, and endeavors that you are here to strengthen and hold more confidence around. Now, how this works together beautifully is that as Chiron finishes up time in Aries, you're going to feel stronger and more confident in declaring what you want, what you need, and what is important to you. This is how the astrological wheel continues on and is a journey of consciousness, is that what you master in one sign then supports you in moving ahead into the themes of the next sign. And so this is where you're going to feel a renewal of self, a brand new start in your life, fresh courage, greater confidence, also understanding what you have deeply healed and transformed in yourself that has shifted how you show up in the world and or how you show up authentically in your core frequency. So this means that you have greater strength to move into the Chiron and Taurus energies, which is where you declare what is essential for you to live a good life. Now that your core root chakra frequency has shifted, then we move into what we build from that in Taurus. And that's going to take us into the sacral chakra, as we will have new areas of growth presented through that sacral chakra of self-worth, emotional security, pleasure, sensuality, receptivity, abundance, nourishment, and learning how to feel safe receiving, as well as what it means to feel strong in the physical world. Chiron in Taurus will reveal where you're holding sensitivity around anything that threatens your sense of comfort and is asking you to look at what needs to be worked through, especially if you are overly attached and clinging to familiar patterns and ways of being. There could also be revelations here around where you are working too hard. Overworking is a theme associated with the earth sign. So Chiron in Taurus is going to show you where you've been doing too much and now it's time to be more in balance. There can also be over control, emotional numbness, resistance to change, fear of vulnerability through intimacy or through getting to know others, like that inability to open up and share oneself and one's needs. There could be revelations around how money has done the talking, or where money or material wealth or material resources have been fulfilling a certain need that reveals what has been hollow and abandoned. There could also be revelations around disconnection from your creativity and even from the sensual embodiment of what it means to be here in your human body. And so we will be invited to look at how that sacral chakra is ready to grow and strengthen by healing it more deeply and personally. This could come up as releasing any fears of change, anything that is holding you back because you're afraid you're not going to have enough. There could be a sense of, well, I don't want to go into my feelings. Feelings are too uncertain and unknown. I'm going to stay in this current perspective and not trust my feelings. We're going to be moving into more ways of being in the body. This includes more somatic work and physical movement. Learning to receive without guilt is going to be a part of healing that sacral chakra, as well as grounding practices, clearing practices, returning to the simple joys of life where you feel alive and pleasure and joy, and understanding that that is part of your divine birthright, and that is where we have more here to move into as Chiron moves into Taurus. So we will be discussing this more, but I wanted to give you a heads up into how the energies are shifting here in May and June, and then through September. You would want to be looking at the late degrees of Aries in your chart, as this is where Chiron is finishing up his time in Aries. And then again, wherever you have 0 degrees of Taurus is where the new pathway will be presenting itself. Keep in mind that transiting Chiron can bring about very beautiful healing experiences when it's making positive aspects in your chart. So notably, these would be the sextiles and trines, where the energy is open, flowing, supportive, and rewarding. So if you have planets or points in the late degrees of fire signs, you're working with this energy more specifically. That Chiron conjunction is working with any planets or points in Aries to address parts of yourself that you are ready to love and accept. And then that Chiron in Aries trining planets or points in the last degrees of the fire signs. We're actually going to go back to 26 degrees. So 26 degrees of Aries, Leo, or Sagittarius is where Chiron in Aries is going to be helping you in some very rewarding, loving ways. And I'm going back to 26 degrees because that is where Chiron will be in the early months of 2027. I know that's a ways off, and I don't mean to confuse some of you if this all sounds like too much, but those of you who are more advanced, this is for you. That Chiron will retrograde back to 26 degrees of Aries in January 2027. So again, the late degrees of the fire signs of Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius are going to be having some supportive new developments coming through with this Chiron in Aries. Then for those of you who have planets or points in the early degrees of the earth signs, so Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, 0 degrees, especially here in 2026, this Chiron in Taurus is going to be making a trine to early degrees of Virgo, early degrees of Capricorn, and it's going to be bringing up some life changes that you are going to be presented with to work through and approach in a new way, and it's going to sync up and show up in a supportive manner. So there are good things that come from these energies, even though we can associate Chiron with a lot of potential difficulty or hardships. There's always a reward. There's always the remedy and the medicine. There's always something fortuitous that is meant to come about. Now, if you have planets or points at 0 degrees of the fixed signs, so 0 degrees of Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, this Chiron in Taurus is going to be bringing your attention to what has been too excessive, what has been too much, where you need to reduce and let go, and where the energies are going to be challenging your own personal value system. So it's good to have a heads up around that, just so you can prepare and know that that is what Chiron and Taurus is going to bring your way. As I mentioned, we will keep discussing this for the next number of years. So just as a heads up, when Chiron returns to Taurus in April 2027. It stays in Taurus until 2034. So we're literally just sampling the energies here in 2026, but I feel that it's important to have a heads up and to be mindful of how this energy is working with you and how you can be aware of the themes as they arrive. And that way you're not caught off guard as much and you don't feel like you are blindsided. You can plan accordingly, which is a strength of the Taurus energies as well. So this would be a great time to be very practical and realistic around the Taurus energies in your life and to look at what you're ready to cut out and let go of so that it doesn't become more of a hardship or challenge later on. I hope you are feeling the strengthening renewal of Chiron finishing up his journey in Aries. I hope you can see how far you've come in your self-awareness, self-development, self-concept, and perhaps even feel like you are more truly yourself because of Chiron's time in Aries since 2018. So as always, thank you so much for joining me. I'll be back every Wednesday and Monday for a podcast episode. On Wednesday, we discuss the weekly intuitive astrology energies that are happening. And on Monday's show, we do one of these specialty focuses. So as always, thank you so much for your time, energy, and presence. It's a joy to connect with you. Be sure to check out my YouTube channel as well, because in the playlists, I talk more about Chiron. So if you want to go into more of the Chiron and Aries themes and understandings, you'll find even more on my YouTube channel. Wishing you a beautiful day ahead, and I'll see you back here very soon. Take good care.